What you streaming?
Hey y'all.
Hey everybody.
Welcome to the What You Streamin' podcast. I'm Allie.
This is Katie.
And we are your hosts of this fantastic little podcast called What You Streamin'. Welcome to What You Streamin', a podcast where we share our recent watches with you. I'm Allie.
And I'm Katie.
And in this week's episode, we discuss the films ThanksKilling and The Headhunter. Now, you might be wondering what these films have in common, and the answer is the creative mind behind them, and that is director Jordan Downey. And we are honored and delighted to actually have him on the podcast with us today. So thank you so very much for joining us, Jordan.
Thank you, guys. You wanted to talk to me, so I want to talk to you. So thank you for having me, really.
Just your spoiler alert for those of you out there. As always, the podcast will probably contain spoilers. We're not very good at avoiding them. So, you have been warned. If you haven't seen the movies that we're about to talk about, now's your chance. Pause it, go have a look, and come back and hang out with us.
Before we dive in and start kind of picking Jordan's mind, we're going to give a brief summary of the movies that we're talking about today. So ThanksKilling is a 2009 American comedy horror thriller film directed by Jordan Downey, our honored guest of the day. And it was followed by ThanksKilling 3 in 2013. And I'm not going to lie, I got real confused when I started ThanksKilling and then started looking for ThanksKilling 2 and couldn't find it.
Good. That was the plan.
Yes, I had a real moment and we figured it out eventually. But definitely a moment in there of where the hell is ThanksKilling 2? And the synopsis on IMDb, I feel really perfectly summarizes what ThanksKilling is all about. And that is that a homicidal turkey is axing off college students during Thanksgiving break. I mean, concise, to the point, summarizes it beautifully. And, that's exactly what happened in the movie. And there are also some pretty awesome one-liners in ThanksKilling, I have to say. And it was funny, I had actually never heard of ThanksKilling, and I'm a pretty big fan of like campy horror films, especially ones that are holiday themed. And Katie was actually the one that found it because she uses the poster as her Thanksgiving Facebook header. So
yeah, every year, like right before Thanksgiving, it always says gobble gobble
Gobble.
Yeah. And
That's
most
awesome.
people are like, oh dear. But I'm like, yeah, man, from this movie, you know what I'm talking about. And you're like, no, don't know what you're talking about.
That's kind of what happened. Gosh, it was last Thanksgiving. We were kind of like, perusing horror themed holiday movies, and she was like,
gearing up for our Krampus fest.
Yes,
we always like to celebrate Krampusnacht, which is right there after Thanksgiving. So we were just really just kind of starting to get into the whole spooky transitional holiday season kind of thing. And we were just like, what are we going to watch today? And I had mentioned, I think I had just changed my header, and she was like, what is this? Is this a real movie? I was like, oh yeah, we're going to watch it. Don't worry about it.
That's funny.
We did. And many laughs were had.
It was so good.
That's great. There's a lot more Christmas ones to choose from, that's for sure. But it's good that ThanksKilling can kick it off for the Krampus Fest. Yes,
it was. Oh my gosh. And then we kind of went down this like rabbit hole of other films that you had done. And of course, other like, there's like Llamageddon out there and all kinds of those kind of DIY campy type horror films. So we started down a path. We found ourselves on a path of very unique movie choices, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's what we found, Headhunter, which is one of your other films. And I have to say, going from watching Thanksgiving to Headhunters, we were like, holy shit, like what is this?
I can only imagine. Yeah.
that we were pretty shocked at the difference of kind of production and style, I guess, of movies. So it was interesting. We were like, what is the story? How have we gone from ThanksKilling to Headhunters? And for the listeners, Headhunters was done in 2018. It's a fantasy horror film that follows a medieval warrior's quest to find the monster that killed his daughter. And the film has 7 wins: Best Special Effects, Best Actor, Best International Feature-Length Horror Film, and Best Overall Feature. It was also nominated for Best Horror Feature and Best Director Feature at the 2018 Nightmare Film Festival. So congrats on all those wins and nominations. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it did really well at a lot of different film festivals.
It's a great film. It's so funny to say, but we really enjoyed both films for different reasons, obviously, because they're very different films. But yeah, we kind of just want to like pick your brain about how you made each of them and kind of what your process was, and some questions about your filmmaking journey in general. And,
absolutely. I mean, yeah, it doesn't feel like they're from the same team of filmmakers, and that's not, there's no knock in saying that, because I can only imagine if you had watched the two of them back to back, what a massive like shift it would seem like. Because we did make some other it doesn't, and we can get into why. From my perspective, it doesn't feel like as big of a shift, but from the outsider, just somebody watching it, I mean, they're night and day. They're not even remotely the same.
And 100% on Rotten Tomatoes too. We saw that and we were like, whoa, what's going on with this film?
Which is cool. Not on a ton of, I don't know how many reviews it's based on anymore now, but there for a while wasn't all that many, but still hard to do. So we were very, it counts. Exactly. We'll take it.
No, it was really, it was kind of a neat thing. I share my entire family, because I don't live anywhere near anyone in my family. And so my entire family all shares kind of one movie account. And so we all kind of watch things together is how it works out, right? Somebody will buy something, and then then we can all talk about it because we can all watch it later. And so we had watched ThanksKilling and we're just like, there's a 3, we kind of dove into that. It was like, it's time to get the Google out. We don't know what the hell's going on. And that's when we saw that you had made Headhunter, and we were like, oh cool. We searched for it, boom, there it is. We're like, sweet, we can watch this, it's there. Because sometimes you'll encounter some of these indie films that aren't quite out there where they can be streamed easily on various platforms yet. So it was really neat that we could do that. And I bought it, and we didn't get to watch it immediately. And so some of the folks in my family were like, what is this? Because they start watching it and then they realize like there's not a single word in it, and they're just like, what is going on in this? I was like, I don't even know yet. Don't talk to me about it. I haven't watched it. I'm waiting. Like I'm trying to, because we were trying to, like, between work and stuff, it's like, okay, this evening's gonna be movie night, and so it was really fun that we were able to kind of share that experience with the rest of the family. They had no idea what was going on. We were like, oh yeah, no, it's going to be great. Just watch it. It'll be cool. So yeah, but
that's funny.
Just moving into some of our questions for you, Jordan.
Fire away. How
did you get into the film industry, and what has your journey been like?
Well, the journey's probably been very similar to other, filmmakers. There's a lot of ups and downs. But the first part, how did I get in? I mean, it just started with, exactly what you're talking about, with finding a holiday horror film that you enjoyed in ThanksKilling. I was the exact same way, growing up. I would just go and rent all of the schlocky horror films that I could. I loved the holiday horror films, especially. And I would, I treated those equal to something that was more prestigious. I would watch the Oscar nominated films and, and suspense thrillers and all of the stuff that you would maybe say is a little more highbrow, I guess. But I would watch those right next to Puppet Master and Full Moon Pictures and, all the bad blockbuster straight to DVD kind of stuff, straight to VHS stuff. So it started, me getting into the film industry began by me loving movies, especially horror and genre movies. I then started, my family, I came from, kind of just a lower middle class family and grew up in a small town on a farm in Ohio. We didn't have camcorders. No one in my family was really like that tech savvy. So my uncle had a camcorder, but I really wasn't like allowed to play with it or anything. And so at some point, the thought of like being obsessed with watching movies. And then I started to think about, well, what if I tried to make them? And a friend of mine his parents had a camcorder. And I think one night during like a sleepover or something, we made a little home movie, and it was horrible. And I didn't, I don't even remember what it was about. We probably had no idea what we were doing. It probably wasn't even a story. It was just us messing with a camcorder. But it was the first time that I ever held a camera and tried to shoot something myself. And I mean, it was love at first sight, I would say. Like, honestly, I remember the next day being so excited about that experience and asking them like, hey, can I come over again next weekend? Can we do that again? And eventually then, like, my grandma had garage sales all the time. And so I eventually like sold one of my gaming systems and whatever, random stuff I had in my bedroom to like earn a little bit of money. And I took that with my summer job working at the pool. And I went to Best Buy and bought a camcorder for a couple $100, the cheapest thing that they had. And then I started making stuff on my own on the weekends with family and friends. Because I was into horror, I was obsessed with Halloween stores. And anytime the costume shops would appear around, in September, October at the mall, or, the places that would take over the dilapidated old building like Spirit or those kinds of places that move into your town, I would always go to those places and look at the masks on the wall, and just all of that kind of special effects stuff was always interesting. So with the camcorder, then I would start to mess around with special effects of my own. And I would buy the fake stage blood or the little mortician's wax kits to make wounds, or the prosthetics. And I would buy masks and kind of cut them up, or sort of use them like puppeteer the masks so that they could, I could bring some kind of a creature to life. And then I would film that. And a lot of times my brothers and family, because my parents were divorced and remarried, so I had a bunch of step siblings around growing up as well. A lot of times they would be in these little movies and we would, have fun together. But other times then it would just be me on a Sunday afternoon filming myself like in Terminator makeup or just ridiculous stuff. None of it was really, I don't think I was really finishing a lot of these things. I mean, I would do little premieres like in the living room for your family. And then eventually, by now I'm probably in high school and starting to think about, okay, well, wait a second, can I actually do this as a career? Because I thought I wanted to be an actor, because I just kind of assumed that, when you're young, you're not thinking about like what the job responsibilities are on a set or what a director does compared to a producer or writer. But I thought I wanted to be an actor because they got to put on the makeup and they got to put on the armor and the costumes and like do the cool stuff. But I was also really shy and introverted. And I mean, I still am, but I just have managed it better over the years. So when the thought of like being an actor and then I was like, well, I don't really want to try out for the high school plays or musicals because I don't want to be up on stage. That's just not me. And I started to do like the lighting department, doing like the light cues and the sound effects and stuff for the high school plays that, where I was going to school. And by doing that, I kind of realized really quickly, okay, I'm not an in front of the camera kind of person. I'm a behind the camera kind of person. So now I'm like, okay, I want to make movies for the rest of my life. And now I know which side of the camera lens I should be standing. And then I started to just research, what film school was and the difference between Los Angeles and New York. I mean, going anywhere outside of, if you're growing up in a small town in the US, like unless you travel a lot, like it doesn't seem, it's like, it's all like just as foreign to me, LA, New York, Oregon, any of these schools that I was looking at, none of them were home. So I knew I was going to have to move, and started applying to schools and got into one in Los Angeles. And I had come out here for like a visit. And I remember walking into a soundstage, and there was a student film being shot there, and they were shooting it on film with, this was not a Best Buy camera that I purchased with garage sale money at this point. This was a legitimate camera in a soundstage with a set. And I just thought it was magic. I mean, I was like, I have to go there because they have sound stages there and I have a barn back here. So I did. I moved out to LA. I didn't know anybody and just started working on student films every weekend. And then that just slowly, increases. You learn all the different departments, and then I worked for 4 years on hundreds of student films, not getting paid a dime, just doing it on the weekends. And eventually then I graduated and started working So getting my start, there isn't this one easy answer as far as like, well, my uncle is Jerry Bruckheimer and or I met blah, blah, blah at Starbucks. Like, I don't have that story. My story is 15 to 20 years of just slowly chipping away at it.
Grind.
The grind, exactly. Yep. But the first jobs I was doing outside of film school, even though we made ThanksKilling while I was in film school, and I was 19 years old when we were making it, but the first jobs I was doing to get paid were working as a grip, because a lot of my friends and my partner who I work with, Kevin, on ThanksKilling and the Headhunter, he's a cinematographer. So I would work as a grip for a while, and I worked on a bunch of Hallmark movies and music videos and commercials and, stuff like that. So I guess you could say that's where I got my start. I don't know. I kind of just created my own start with just making ThanksKilling. And, that's really the first thing that anybody paid attention to, I guess.
I like the thought behind being able to essentially create your own, I say your own success, but that kind of sounds silly, but you hear about a lot of filmmakers that are out there kind of trying to sell their ideas and get in production companies. And yeah, I like that there's the option that you can just kind of say, fuck it, and start your own and do your own films and put it out there for everyone to see and like, just see what happens.
You can. I think that is for the most part the most. I think that's certainly what I would advise anybody that wants to become a filmmaker is don't wait for permission. That's the worst thing you can do. I hate that. I hate waiting for somebody to give me a chance to do this thing that is a hybrid between my profession and hobby. Working for me is not a chore. Like, I love what I do. And so it doesn't, but because of that, it's like, I can't, I get sick to my stomach if I feel like I'm waiting for somebody to allow me to do that. So you've got to really just start. There is something to be said about people. If you want to be a writer, sure, you could start as an intern for a writer's room on a TV show. And then eventually you get to write, an episode or something. There are ways to work your way up, but I don't think that's how most people do it. Certainly directors. I think most times you go back and look at, prolific directors of any kind, and they started making stuff when they were, in middle school, high school, college, whatever it was. There are some, sort of late bloomers, but yeah, you really, and it applies to so many different careers and probably a lot of topics that you guys have talked about on your podcast. So just like, you really do have to sort of pave your own way and just get going,
Yeah, gotta put yourself out there. If you are always waiting for the perfect time to do anything, you'll never do anything.
If you're like me and you're just getting started with podcasting, it can be scary and overwhelming. That's why Anchor is such a great choice. It's one of the easiest ways to make a podcast, and best of all, it's free. It also has great creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Another great feature of Anchor is that they'll distribute your podcast for you. Your listeners will be able to access your podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many others. You can also make money from your podcast using Anchor, and that's with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place, and it's easy to use. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
You mentioned you're a huge fan of horror. If you could pick one movie from your childhood that you feel like really kind of shaped your love of horror, what movie would that be?
Oh, that's easy. That Critters. That's my favorite movie. Not the best. I'm not saying it's the best movie. I'm just saying it's my favorite movie of any genre. For that reason, because I watched it, I remember having the VHS tapes around my brother had, and the covers of Critters and Critters 2 are super memorable.
Yep.
And I just obsessed over that artwork and would watch it whenever it would come on TV and would rent it. It was the first movie that I just started watching on repeat. And then at some point, probably thinking about, oh, where can I buy these puppets? Or just thinking about like the movie outside of the movie and the making of process, wanting to know who the filmmakers were and who were these Kyoto brothers that built these, creatures. And so that was, Critters was the one that did it for me.
That used to scare the pants off me when I was
Critters
little.
was, man,
terrifying.
That was like the one I grew up, my mother's a huge Stephen King fan, like grew up reading, watching, you know, like Pet Sematary and stuff like that. But Critters was like the one movie that just scared the shit out of me. Like I was like scared to go to the bathroom by myself because I was like waiting for him to come out of the toilet. Like, not it. Yeah, that one got me. I don't know what it is about Critters, but terrified me.
Too, you know, you had back then adults let kids watch just some of the craziest stuff. And especially in our families, for sure. And, you know, I think this one was probably one they were like, oh, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of fun and cute. Like they can watch it. It'll be fine. And then, you know, you're traumatized for like the next 4 or 5 years.
And you know what always did it for me is like the small creatures always scared me way more than big creatures, because the small things could hide in the vent, under the bed, in the toilet, like you said.
That's
and it
what
was maybe. And it was also just that the small creatures were in like a suburban, well, I guess in Critters, it's kind of more like a farmhouse, a country house, but like, I don't know, it was just relatable. It was like the basement and the garage and the barn and the front door. It was all the things that, like you said, you encounter on a daily basis. So you could relate to it.
Just skittering around, just waiting for you. So you said you made ThanksKilling when you were in film school. What, I mean, obviously you kind of gave us a little insight into, you know, you go to the Halloween stores and like cut up masks and make puppets. So definitely can see that in ThanksKilling in a variety of, we got puppets wearing puppets.
Puppets wearing other puppets.
Like, did you have the story of ThanksKilling kind of in mind, or like, how did you come up with this?
Well, like I kind of, in my backstory, you know, I loved those holiday horror films and the cheesy sort of so bad it's good, you know, genre. Like I would in high school and then in college with my college friends and with Kevin, we would just go and rent movies that we were hoping would be bad, and you could tell by the cover more or less, or knowing the production company or some of the filmmakers, and just like, you know, you knew what you were getting. And I loved those. I loved the, you know, the Leprechaun series, the Puppet Master series, and some of those are actually good and not necessarily bad in my opinion. But Jack Frost, Uncle Sam, all of those were some of my favorites. And so at LMU, Kevin and I were talking about making a feature film, because that was like the big challenge, right? You know, if you're making shorts and you want to be a filmmaker, making a feature film is the ultimate sort of goal. And so we were like, hey, let's, you know, why don't we go make a feature film this summer, and we can sort of borrow school gear and stuff that our friends might have. Why don't we go and actually try and do this? Because no one else was doing it, and we were kind of always the go-getters and the ones that just wanted to find the next great challenge. And so we were talking about what we should do. And because we loved these kinds of movies, and Kevin was a huge fan of like Chucky and Child's Play, we were just like, well, why don't we just make a horror film, and we'll go back to Ohio and shoot it sort of in the woods or on my family's property. And why don't we do like one of these holiday sort of horror films and purposely make it a comedy, basically, and set out to go and make something really cheesy, so that our zero budget, we had $3,000, that could basically be part of the humor as well, so that it wasn't sort of like us, because we were like, there's no way in hell we're going to try and actually make something serious with this kind of budget and with what gear we've got and the experience we have and what talent pool and just everything we had. We were like, no, we'd be crazy to try and make something serious. So let's do the exact opposite and make something that's totally goofy. And that is sort of a wink to all of the movies that we've been talking about. It like clearly is self-aware of that it exists in a ginger dead man type world. But so we realized very quickly, as anyone would, Thanksgiving had not been done. It was like Thanksgiving and Easter were the two holidays that weren't exploited, you know, over and over. And I mean, it didn't take long, because we were like, well, you got to have a funny villain, right? Like that's the sort of like signature of any of these slashers, is that you got to have like a villain and he's got to be ridiculous. And we're like, okay, well, talking turkey, that sounds pretty ridiculous. And we came up with gobble gobble motherfucker in the first 5 or 10 minutes of this discussion. So once we had that, and we were like, here's this. And I think the title ThanksKilling, we had that right away as well. And we thought it was so bad even at the time, we were like, there's no way we're going to end up calling this ThanksKilling. It's so dumb. And it's perfect for it in the end. But so within like a couple minutes of this discussion, we had talking turkey, ThanksKilling, gobble, gobble, motherfucker. And how could you not make that at that point? So away we went. But the origin of it was just go, make a feature film and see if we could get distribution and just get it out there as a challenge. And then, so we knew, okay, let's go and try and tackle something goofy.
And have fun with it, hopefully.
And have fun. Have fun, exactly. And laugh. And we did. We had a blast. We were exhausted while making it because we filmed it all in 11 days. And we were just sort of sleeping on couches and, staying up to all hours of the night because we would shoot during the day and then we'd have to go and sort of prep stuff for the next day or build little sets or props, whatever it was. There was a very small crew. And so we were exhausted, but I think that people sometimes ask why is ThanksKilling? What is it that makes ThanksKilling special? Or why do people revisit it every holiday? And it's because of the spirit of whatever you enjoy when you watch it or you put that cover up on Facebook, we enjoyed it while making it. That was there when we were making it. We knew this was ridiculous and we were all having such a good time with it and laughing at ourselves and laughing at the movie and becoming friends along the way. So I think, that energy was infused into it from the start, I think.
And you ended up with a pretty big fan club, but fandom. I mean, it funded the next one essentially, right? Through crowdsourcing and everything. So that had to feel pretty good. Kind of putting this, you're 19, you're in film school, you put this film together, you put it out there and people reacted to it in such a way that they paid for the next one. So
I know.
That's pretty sweet.
It was cool. Yeah. It was this career talk of nothing ever happens overnight. So with ThanksKilling, we made it when we were juniors in college. And then we had to go finish our senior year of school and make our thesis films and graduate while editing it. And so it didn't come out for another. And then the first year, once we had finished it, we couldn't find distribution for it. And so we ended up just sort of ordering 1,000 copies, 1,000 DVDs and selling them on Amazon just out of our apartment closet and trying to drum up some sort of interest just by writing horror blogs and, in Fangoria and begging for any press we could get. And then there was a distributor who came on a year later. So yes, it felt great that it eventually took off, but it took a little while. ThanksKilling did not find its place, I guess, in the cult spectrum right away. I'd say it took a few years until it finally got on Netflix, in the early stages of Netflix, when there was a comment section and people were having a field day with it. And I think that's where it really kind of gave it its cult status. It happened very slowly and very naturally, but by the time we did ThanksKilling 3, like you said, the crowdsourcing, that was really cool because that was kind of at the peak of interest in it, I guess.
We recently did an interview with another director of an indie film, and distribution was something that he kind of mentioned as well. It's not something that when you're making the film you're necessarily thinking about a lot, and then when it comes up, there's not, I don't want to say that there often times, as I guess a small filmmaker, there's not a clear path, I guess, to figure out how to do that. So I know that y'all did a lot of, like you said, you were selling it on Amazon. You did a lot of your own marketing and branding and putting yourself out there. What, I guess if you had to give a piece of advice to other small filmmakers or indie filmmakers when it comes to that type of process, marketing yourself and branding yourself, what would that piece of advice be? I guess
if the nugget is marketing and branding for a film that maybe doesn't have distribution, so what can you do to get eyes on that or to get a distributor to purchase that film rather than you personally as a brand, because that is a whole separate thing, but equally important. I think, the big thing is, if you don't have distribution from the start when you're going to go make your movie, and let's just assume that you don't really have a bunch of contacts because you're fairly new at this, or it's a very low budget kind of movie, you've got to be thinking about poster and trailer very early on. I mean, in title as well. The title ThanksKilling is absolutely ridiculous, that once you put that onto the right image of the right poster, okay, that, you know, there's something that would say to a distributor, you know, for better or worse, we can probably make money off of this or get rentals out of this. So I think that's a big thing, is like, even before shooting, I do this all the time now with any project, no matter what the tone is, put together some kind of artwork. Maybe it's not still pictures that you take. It could be stock images. It could be, you know, maybe if you can go out and stage a photo shoot, I totally think you should do that. But you've got to figure out like what you're, you know, at this day and age with VOD rentals, and you guys know, it's just like, it's overwhelming, you know, with Netflix and Peacock and Amazon and Hulu and Shudder. It's like you're inundated with stuff to choose from. And oftentimes the little, you know, posters, if it's not a theatrical film, if it's a little indie film, the posters are going to be 2 or 3 inches tall, you know, when you're scrolling through. So you've got to really, you know, at this day and age with film marketing, like, you've got to be able to boil your idea down into something interesting at like 3 inches and in 3 seconds. So that was important for us. Like, even with the Headhunter, just put a big ass Viking, you know, with a very simple background and a big font, make it incredibly legible, and we designed it for 3 inches. As silly as that sounds, that was the goal, was for it to work at that size. So I think you got to think about that. You've got to think about what your title is going to say on top of the artwork, and that what the poster and what the trailer will sort of look like, because those are the keys to getting distribution. The movie has to be great, of course, but that's going to then maybe help get you a better distributor, not necessarily just gets nothing or gets something. So it's maybe a bigger than one little nugget, but poster and trailer.
It's great. Yeah, no, it worked. And especially because a lot of people are watching from their smaller devices, you know, I mean, with COVID, everybody being home, probably watching from a television or even a, you know, computer monitor screen. But a lot of times when folks are just out and about, they're watching from their phones and from their tablets. And so that 3 inches goes down even smaller.
Yeah,
you know?
You're right.
So yeah, being able to like trigger that kind of response in their brain. Oh yeah, I might want to watch that. I mean, because that's definitely what gets us a lot of times. We sometimes, especially, we watch a lot of foreign, like Korean television and movies and stuff. And, you know, a lot of times the way that the titles will translate over, you're kind of just like, what is that about? But it'll be the graphics, you know, we're like, oh, okay, we'll just scroll through and like, do we want to watch that? Maybe, I don't know. You know?
Right.
So definitely. And especially if you have that memorable pop to it, it'll keep it'll draw the people who want to watch that kind of thing in. Clearly. I mean, we were like, yeah, we're down.
Exactly.
For both of them.
And oh yeah, absolutely. So you made ThanksKilling in 2009, which, you know, that period of time had a pretty different view and content back then, as far as comedy and the humor and everything. It was much different from today. But even back then, I would say, if I had watched it back then, I mean, ThanksKilling is like towing the line in a lot of ways in how far it's taken the humor. So did you get any kind of blowback from that then, or have you gotten any recently as people kind of start to just encounter the film randomly? Like, have you seen any of that kind of thing?
No, which I guess, to be honest, I'm kind of surprised to a degree, because you're right. It definitely does toe the line on some stuff. And I mean, there's things in ThanksKilling that, I wish I could change. That there's ways to be funny without being mean-spirited, which was never the intent, but can come across that way. I think, I don't know. I mean, one, I think just the exposure of it, you know, it's not that big of a thing. And to the fact that, you know, basically, like, whether it was right or wrong, our main inspiration was South Park, and like that was something we were watching a lot of. And I remember that, like, in high school, being so affected by those early episodes and like what they were getting away with saying. And I think that was probably in us to a degree, of just like, see how far we can push this in that South Parky potty humor that basically found its way into the turkey. I think we didn't know what we were we weren't fully aware of what we were what we were doing at the time. But no, there hasn't been anything over the years that I'm aware of, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a couple moments where we were sitting there and the character would say something and we just went, they are making them the most obnoxiously stereotypical individuals.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, okay, we get what's happening here. Because, at first we were like, the opening scene kind of led us
to
the
full
mindset.
choice.
We're like, where is this going? But then we were like, oh, we're going here. Okay. We're along for the ride. And then, as the characters start interacting with each other, we're just like, wow. All right. Yeah. Okay. This guy, he's a total dick. Okay. We're going to go follow along with him. And then, yes, just Turkey and his one-liners. And I mean, I don't know that we had laughed that hard. Yeah. Probably the whole quarantine.
Tears.
So that, it was like, we were just like, okay, we got it. And then there would be things where some of us would catch them, but the others wouldn't. And so it was kind of like a game. Like somebody would be like, what the hell is that about? And somebody else would jump in, oh no, you didn't see that? Yeah, this is what's happening. So it was really fun as a group experience. And I think especially because we were, in our 2008, so mid-20s, early 20s, mm-hmm. 2008. And, we went through that whole period, same period as you did, where it was like South Park is basically mm-hmm. religion. And you just had some of the greatest, like, Adult Swim cartoons on, like everything was just so irreverent and in your mm-hmm. face. And that was just how everything was. So I don't know if I want to say it was nice seeing it again, but
it took us back down memory lane.
Yeah, we definitely understood it. Like we were like, okay, we can get here with this. But so yeah, we definitely were gonna like, ooh, there was a couple of times we were like, ooh, I don't know about that one. I don't know how well that would travel, but okay. Oh
yeah.
Man.
That being said, we do walk around the house quoting the turkey
all the time. Just randomly, just all the time.
One of us will just shout out a line. We'll just say like, gobble gobble, motherfucker.
Yep. That's great.
So it was fun, and we appreciate the effort that you and Kevin made. I mean, it was something that we will continue to watch as the years go by. Like I said, we have our traditional holiday trash movie sessions basically, and that's, hey, sometimes you just want to hang out and laugh, and not everything has to be this super cerebral think fest whenever you do anything. Mm-hmm. But that being said, you would think a movie like Headhunter, where there's no real dialogue going on in there, that it would be very simple. But no, you really like get into it and have to try and like figure out what's going on. And like if you are not paying attention, you run the real risk of later on just being like, what the fuck is actually happening over here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What inspired you to go that route, that more minimal storytelling style?
Well, I mean, I think that, not to say that I would have made, been able to have made or would have made the same version of Headhunter if we had gone out to make that instead of ThanksKilling, when we were in school. But Headhunter is much more like, ThanksKilling is the outlier in my mind. Like that's the one that, so like talking about making that leap, like in my mind, if anything, ThanksKilling was like stepping back beyond into like the negative zone as far as like making something odd, in that the Headhunter was always much more like what I was interested in. And it was much more close in tone and execution, production value to like the student films and the short films I was making around the same time. So that minimalist sort of style with, a little art house, a little cerebral, like you said, that was always kind of like what I was really interested in. It just didn't manifest itself until Headhunter. But we, very similar to ThanksKilling, it's very low budget, tiny cast and crew, and started with the same genesis, basically, as far as Kevin and I just saying, let's go make another feature film. We're tired of waiting for permission, and, in between we're writing other scripts and, doing the whole thing of submitting scripts and trying to raise money and taking meetings and all that kind of stuff. And it gets exhausting after a while. And so we just said, okay, let's go make another film. And this time, instead of Ohio, we were like, okay, well, what do we have? And Kevin grew up in Portugal, and his grandma still lives in this sort of misty little village in the countryside. And so we knew we had this location. And so we kind of were like, okay, same intent basically as ThanksKilling. Let's go make a feature film. What do we have available? And we spent 6 months to a year kind of just pitching ideas that could work for this village. Modern stories with more dialogue. It just so happened that the best idea we came up with was the idea of this medieval warrior that sort of had this sack full of heads that then would get underneath this, magic elixir and come back to life and kind of go Pet Cemetery and Evil Dead with him. And so it just so happened that that was the best idea we had. We didn't sit down and say, hey, let's go make a medieval movie, or let's, that was never on the agenda. We just were trying to come up with the best possible scenario that could be shot for a low budget at this location that we knew looked pretty cool. And then once we had the idea, then we just sort of started, setting out to go and make the movie and see if we could actually pull it off, all the special effects and the props and all of the stuff that went into it. We didn't know at the beginning how difficult that stuff would end up being. But to answer your question, yeah, we loved that minimalist sort of style of filmmaking, and I do. I love those kinds of quiet folklore kind of movies. A Quest for Fire, this sort of Neanderthal French movie, was a huge inspiration because I remember seeing that. I don't know when I saw that, probably in film school, and I just thought it was so awesome. The idea of telling a story without dialogue. I'm not a super talkative person in general, so it's I just kind of I find it really interesting that where other people feel like you have to fill this void with a bunch of talking and also cutting out the fat of a movie. You don't normally show a character walking across the room or making dinner, going to the bathroom, or any of that stuff. But I've always found it more interesting in the way Breaking Bad sometimes does it, or other films where they'll sort of they'll slow down moments in a movie, right? And it'll just kind of be a very simple story about somebody going from point A to point B, or if it's building, working on a potion or something like that, instead of that just being one shot, making that 2 minutes long. But during that, rather than, and hopefully this is what happened, but that instead of that becoming boring and it feeling like you're just shooting a bunch of nonsense for 2 minutes, that you can tell character and story and set up suspense during that whole thing. That's kind of what interests me about movies, is taking those little things that other people skip over and kind of building a whole movie around that. So that was what was in our heads when setting out to do Headhunter.
I love that kind of minimalist style, especially when it comes to horror movies. Especially talk about zombie movies a lot, but it's my favorite kind of genre, I guess. But
zombie movies.
Talk about zombie movies forever. But I find that I like British productions of zombie movies a lot more because there is very little dialogue, and it's usually someone, like you were saying, just walking across a field by themselves, just alone, and you can kind of feel that loneliness through the scenery and the music, and you don't need words to kind of get that feeling from it. So definitely loved what you did with Headhunter. It was awesome.
Thank you guys. I mean, that's awesome too that you enjoyed both, because that says a lot about just your taste, that it has a wide range, that you could both laugh at ThanksKilling but also enjoy something like Headhunter that's quiet, and like you said, if you turn it off for a little bit, you might still enjoy it, but you don't pick up on the full story. So you got to really pay attention.
It was definitely one of those ones you couldn't be messy. A lot of times now you'll catch yourself, I want to watch a thing. You start watching that thing, and then you're playing with your phone before you know it. And it's not that it's not something you aren't enjoying. It's just your brain is stuck on your phone all the time, or stuck on doing multiple things all the time. So it is an effort to stop what you're doing and really pay attention. And so that was one of the things some of the family members who said watched it, they were like, what was this even about? And I was like, well, did you watch it, or were you playing on your phone while you watched it? You're gonna have to go back and watch it. But I think it's really cool. And I'm wondering now, so when you and Allie talk about slowing things down and really kind of experiencing what is happening in the moment, I wonder if that's because we as the watcher are being given enough time to really connect with the actions that are happening and making them super relatable to the things that we do every day. So as you know, when our character in Headhunter is just kind of going about his business, he's, you know, either done his hunting for the day and he comes back with his kill, and he goes through this process of, you know, taking off his gear and doing what he's got to do with it, and or he's getting ready to go out, or he's just kind of preparing, but he's just moving about his space and he's taking care of business. And you know, it's like we all do that. Everybody does that. We all come home from a day at work and, you know, pants off, bra off, whatever you got to do with it, and just, you know, I'm cooking dinner or doing whatever. So it kind of gives you that little bit of time to really sink into it, I think, and say, oh, you know, this is, I can understand this. This is putting me there. So I think it's really cool in a way. Like Allie said, it really does put you more into the moment so that you can actually get a better sense of how it might feel to be in those spaces. So yeah, it was pretty good. We really enjoyed watching it. To say, like, it started up, I think we actually had to like restart it because it started, and I think maybe I had to watch it again because at some point I had to get up and do something, and it totally threw me off. And I was just like, y'all can keep watching it, because they were like, we'll pause it for you. And I was like, no, you've already paused it once. Like, I have to keep getting up. Like, just keep watching it. I'm going to go do whatever I got to do, and I'll come back and watch it by myself later. Like, I felt like I was losing out. Like, I was just like, I don't know. This is not how I want it. So thankfully, I did get to sit back down and watch it, and, you know, really enjoyed the experience. So thank you very much for putting that time and effort into it. Do you want to talk about some of the difficulties you had kind of in the post stuff? Like, would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, difficulties, you know, generally speaking, the biggest difficulty is trying to, you know, direct the movie and tell the story with a bunch of close-ups and a bunch of, you know, little visual clues of just like, you know, us choosing when for the camera to slightly push in on something to say, hey, pay attention here, or cutting off his head throughout the movie with the frame to sort of subtly suggest what is going to come later on. Coming up with those kinds of ideas and trying to figure out, okay, how much do we actually, how much story can we actually tell without sound, without dialogue? That was the biggest challenge, trying to balance that and, you know, come up with an idea for what that would be and then execute on it. Balancing that with the fact that we also were the art department and special effects team, and having to then work with the technical, you know, aspects of getting this puppet to look right, or this mask or this head, because unlike ThanksKilling, you can't laugh at the Headhunter. You know, the tone of it is dead serious and very grim. So you have to, it's not that you can't have fun with it, but it definitely, those special effects have to hold up and look good. So that was the biggest challenge, generally speaking, is just like telling the story and making sure that, you know, Chris, the actor, and the character were being developed properly, and the tone was staying consistent, and just thinking about the big picture stuff while also juggling the micro stuff of getting a spider to come back to life and all the little intricacies.
I have to say, the shutter, the window shutter.
Yeah.
Man, I was like screaming at that shutter through the entire movie. I was like, you have to fix it. You have to fix it. Something's going to happen. Just stop for a moment and fix the shutter, please.
That's funny. Yeah, the shutter was kind of, you know, we were trying to think like, wow, how do we, you know, if you've got this really awesome, well-equipped hero, how do you sort of like, what are his weaknesses? Like, how do you show that he's vulnerable? And we just figured like, yeah, this guy kind of, his profession, you know, bleeds quite literally into his day-to-day life, as far as like, he goes and slays a monster and he comes back and he has to make more of the elixir to heal his wound, and he has to heal the wound, and that might take, you know, hours, and he's sore and stiff, and he's got to sharpen his sword, and he's got to fix his armor at the blacksmith, and, you know, do all of these different things that are related to his work. But so the last thing that guy would be doing is like chores or yard work, or just like, if it means that like his his window shutter is banging in the wind. That's not a threat to him. But the irony is that that is exactly what is the thing that you put off is the thing that's going to bite you in the ass, is basically the message of it, which we probably all have that thing we're putting off, right? That doctor visit or that thing that we don't want to do that we should. Otherwise, the shutter will get us, I guess, is the moral of the story.
Screaming at the screen. I was just like, come on.
Yeah.
This was Chris's first film, right?
His first, he had been in commercials and music videos, but yeah, his first starring role in a feature. Yeah.
He was just like, I feel like he was meant for that role. He did such a good job. And like, like you were saying, like the micro moments, not only in kind of his surroundings, but how he, moves and his facial expression, like, it was just like, it all came together so well. And I was amazed. Again, I was like, holy shit, this was the first movie he's been in.
Yeah, he did a great job. And I'm glad that he got recognized at a couple of the awards you mentioned early on, and one of them was really special because that was some of the previous winners just a few years ago was Mads Mikkelsen. And so then for Valhalla Rising, or I forget if it was something else, but so I'm glad that you guys pointed that out, just that, Chris steals the movie, because he does. And it is, it's kind of like, we didn't write the role knowing we would find that guy. We were definitely concerned that we knew, we were like, there's no way we're going to cast some American guy and put a wig on him or a fake beard, even if you got the best possible hair, the best hairpiece and the best beard, and you had the best makeup effects artist applying it every day, it just wouldn't feel real. And we were so lucky when we found, to somehow also find somebody who's a really talented actor who hasn't been, because if there was a version of Chris that had already made 3 feature films, he's probably not going to come to Portugal to do this no budget movie with, these filmmakers that he doesn't know. So to find the person that is both incredibly talented, but undiscovered to a degree, who also just has that physique and looks that way, it's like we hit a lottery ticket that we got for that. And it just, so building the movie around him then was easy, because he did it all. And he, so much of, like you said, the little facial expressions and the way he moves and the mannerisms, he got into it and he owned the role. And it wouldn't work without him. That's for sure.
Jordan, thank you so much for joining us on What You Streamin'. We really appreciate it. And we really enjoyed your films. Are you currently working on any projects, or do you have any upcoming projects that you would like to share?
I'm working on a bunch of things. Nothing that I can announce or talk, in details about. I'll just say that, making ThanksKilling and the Headhunter, when we had those ideas, even though they're polar opposites, right? They both felt right. Like we knew going into it, these are 2 things that we believe in and that we want to spend a couple of years of our lives on. And we have that exact same feeling times 100 for the project we're working on now. So I'm super excited, and it's just a matter of when we go out and make it. It'll be a bigger budget than any of these other films have been so far, but tonally it'll be closer to the Headhunter, and it's certainly still a genre film. But it's very exciting. We've been working hard on it. That's the one of the positives that's come out of the pandemic, is being locked inside with nothing to do but write. So we're getting very close on that. So hopefully this summer we'll be moving forward with it, and we can, make things more official. But we're working on a bunch of stuff that we're really excited about. So hopefully sooner than later.
When it comes to, ThanksKilling and the Headhunter, I think they're both can be streamed on Amazon.
Yeah, ThanksKilling. I'm not sure if it's on Prime still as far as free streaming. It was on Tubi at one point, I believe. You can get them both on DVD on Amazon if you want a physical copy. But Headhunter, you can rent. That's everywhere, iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, whatever you prefer. ThanksKilling should be everywhere as well. It should be pretty easy.
Awesome. And, if folks want to check out your work or find you on social media, where can they hunt you down at?
You can Twitter at Scare Jordan or Instagram at Jordan Downey. They can follow me on either of those. And on my YouTube channel, I do have some short films up there that you can find as well. That one does not have a cool handle though. So you can also go to my website, jordan-downey.com.
Of course, listeners, I will drop all of his information in the episode description, so you will be able to find the YouTube channel and his website super easily. Before we wrap up, we do like to ask our guests, what have you been streaming lately?
I started watching Mayor of Easttown, the new HBO series with Kate Winslet. It's really good. If you guys like true crime, kind of like it's not true crime in the documentary sense, but true crime in sort of the Mindhunter or The Outsider, those kinds of prestige.
Yes.
Yep. If you're into that, you're gonna love it. Awesome. Mayor of Easttown.
Thanks.
That's
Jordan.
really good.
We'll be watching that.
It's good. I need to finish the second episode tonight myself. And movie wise, I watched Freaky the other night. I loved that. I thought that was great. The Blumhouse sort of body swap horror film with Vince Vaughn, all kinds of stuff. I mean, leading up to the Oscars, I was mostly getting caught up on all the awards type stuff. Another Round, the Mads Mikkelsen movie that won Best International Feature. That's awesome. Watched that the other night.
Film.
Yeah, I heard that was a really good one.
It's really good. It's really good. And Wolfwalkers, the animated film, that's on Apple. It's also really good. I believe it's Irish, but it's kind of a sort of a werewolf, kind of a spin on a werewolf lore, but that's really good. Yeah, those are just a few that have come to mind that I've watched in the past couple weeks.
Man, the list
Thanks.
grows.
Yeah. My list is, I'll never get to it. I've just accepted that.
Same. Oh my gosh. Well, again, thank you so much, Jordan. This has been an absolute pleasure getting to pick your mind and kind of hear the story behind these films. So yeah, can't thank you enough. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you guys really for having me. I appreciate it. And we'll catch up on the next one.
Follow us on all the socials, all that jazz. Like, share, subscribe, leave a review. All of that helps the podcast tremendously. And with that, get to streaming. We'll see you next week. Bye.